Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mayor Cyril Jefferson convening the special meeting of the High Point City Council. Here with us in the room, we have every member of council present, save Council Member Johnson and Mayor Pro Tem Peters. We'll go ahead and ask if there's a motion to adopt our agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made by Councilmember Holmes and seconded by Councilmember Andrew. Any discussion on the motion to adopt our agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it, and our agenda is adopted. First order of business is item 2026-41, municipal service districts. Looking at survey results. At this time, we'll ask staff to present survey results on municipal service districts. And for the first presentation on this, we'll recognize Stephen Howard, our Budget and Performance Director.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon to you, members of the council. A little background on kind of how we got to where we are. Back in September and October, staff presented kind of background information on municipal service districts, what they are, how they're comprised, how one could be created, what one might look like, or what a timeline would look like if High Point Council chose to move in that direction. Since that time, a couple of our stakeholder partner organizations have conducted kind of surveys on downtown services and potential support for a municipal service district. And so I'll be just kind of providing high level on some of those responses. The full kind of survey results are included with your agenda item. And so the two organizations that kind of, we're kind of reaching out, talking to the members of the community. We're Downtown High Point and Business High Point. Downtown High Point held a few municipal service district informational sessions, and then had post-meeting surveys. And Business High Point conducted a survey of Congdon Yards tenants. Starting with Downtown High Point, two stakeholder meetings were held in December 9th and 10th. There was a third scheduled, but I believe weather kind of caused that to be delayed, but having the other two still allowed them to kind of reach out to the community. There was a post-meeting survey asking questions ranging about satisfaction with existing services, types of newer improved services that might be desired, if there were support for a municipal district, for a municipal service district, and some other questions. So we're not going to go through every question in the survey, but we did want to highlight just a couple for this presentation. One, how satisfied are you with the current offerings in downtown and uptown High Point? There were 21 respondents. We've combined satisfied and very satisfied and dissatisfied and very dissatisfied just for the sake of kind of keeping things a little clearer. And so you see about 57% on that very satisfied or dissatisfied. You can see the other results there. An additional question, how likely are you to support the establishment of a municipal service district in downtown High Point? Of the 21 respondents, 9 on the likely or very likely, or almost 43%. 4 were neutral, and 8 on the unlikely, very unlikely, about 38%. Moving on to Business High Point, performing we're calling the Congdon Yards tenant survey. Also asking questions about satisfaction with existing services, support of an MSD, as well as some other questions and findings. First question, would you support a municipal service district or MSD? Out of 30 respondents, 10 yes, 19 no, and 1 with no response. Those are a third, so that's why those don't add to 1%. Otherwise, the 3 just repeats for all those. So about a third in favor, and about 2/3 saying they would not support. And trying to come with a similar response to what Downtown Highway, had. They kind of had an average satisfaction by downtown attribute. 1 would be kind of the lowest, and 5 being the highest, very satisfied. And so all of these attributes rated higher than 3, which was kind of the middle of the range. You can see the different responses there. So lastly, just kind of a summary of what staff sees as feedback from these 2 responses. There was a mix of responses regarding support or lack thereof for a municipal service district. Stakeholders surveyed raised questions about the proposed boundaries. There was questions about clarity on the timeline for establishing a municipal service district, but the process did allow for some initial conversations around what potential enhanced services could be provided within a municipal service district. And as I alluded to, the full survey responses from both Downtown High Point and Business High Point are provided in your agenda item. That concludes staff's presentation of these survey results. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions from council?
Yes, Stephen, thank you for the results. Any like dig down detail in what was it just a blanket from the Condon Yards folks? Was it just a blanket? They didn't like the idea of a MSD, or were there specific reasons why they said they just couldn't support that?
I can't speak to the details. I know that Rachel from Business High Point is here. If she wants to provide any more in the weeds.
So I think that the overarching feelings were that it was just too premature.
Sure.
They felt like it was an infancy where we were downtown. They acknowledged that at specific points, and there were some triggers that we included within the presentation, that once you met those triggers, then we could discuss what that could look like. But right now, we felt like it would be really detrimental to the growth that's occurring.
Okay.
And thoughts also, if you were to enact it, could there be a grandfathering
Sure.
in of current businesses
Sure.
or at a lower rate? There was just a couple different formulas in there that they
So
recommended.
not no, but not right now.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if you don't mind,
Sure.
I think that what another sentiment was with the overall satisfaction of the current
Sure.
city, the things that the city provides. It was overarching that they were satisfied, and I think it was on both of our surveys that we did. So the MSD would be enacted for services that were going to be provided above the current services that were being provided. So I think that's when the discussion probably should happen as
Sure,
well
sure.
of what's the baseline.
Okay.
So what are the services being provided? And then really doing some data metrics of what are those being requested above what's being currently done.
Thank you, Rachel.
Any other questions from council? Madam Manager, I know there's some of this that we've been pacing, because you've often told us that if we were gonna make the decision, that there's a sequencing we do with all of this. Because we need to, for example, if we wanted to start levying the tax or the municipal service district tax for 26-27 fiscal year, we have to make the determination, and then that revenue wouldn't be realized until the 27-28 year. So just saying that out loud, Madam Manager, are we at the point now where council has to make a decision, that's not necessarily a yes or no, but rather now or later, I think? Because that's what I keep hearing is, for a growing downtown, we're the only, if I recall correctly, of the top 12 cities in the state, we're the only one that doesn't have an MSD for our downtown. So it's not really a matter of if we do it, it's a matter of when we do it. If we wanted to have that revenue realized for the 27-28 fiscal year, we would need to start the train now to be moving towards that. Is that correct?
We would, Mayor and members of council, staff would need to have some indication if this is something that the council would pursue. And one of the first presentations that was shared by our budget director, we have to identify the boundaries for the MSD, and then there's a public process where we have to put those maps out, allow feedback, allow public hearings before we establish the boundaries of the district. And typically, once you've gone through the process of establishing the boundaries of the district, as part of the budget process, you would designate what the tax is that you would want to have associated with that boundary. So in order for us to begin the process of preparing, if that's the desire of council, then we would need to know if council would like to proceed or not. Again, if this is something that the council does not want to pursue at this time, then that gives us some additional time to answer questions around the boundaries and how those things were established and decided. But there was a lot of input that was put in on the front end in terms of the core of downtown, incorporating some businesses that are in uptown that also wanted to be part of this. But it can always be refined or the process adjusted as the board desires.
Feedback from council here, Madam Manager just laid out general sort of overview of what next steps would need to look like. But the key thing is that today, I think staff is looking for some level of direction from us on whether we'd like them to pursue moving forward for this to be in place for 26-27 So that way revenues realized 27, 28, the new direction from this council. I'll go ahead and just offer for everyone, in case you're wondering, I am of the thinking that this might be premature, honestly. And some of the discussions we've had early on, going back to last year, we tried to put a finger on, Stephen, you did this presentation in the fall. We tried to put a finger on looking at comparable cities across the state, again, those top 12, at what stage in their life cycle of downtown did they implement this? And it was hard for us to find a real trend, I think. But the idea of doing that, very similar to what you mentioned, Rachel, is there should be some triggers that let us know when it's the right time to do it, whether it's the life cycle of your downtown development or at what point do our service calls get to be too numerous in downtown that our existing capacity is really strained trying to meet it, so on and so forth. So that it's my thinking that it is premature, at least for now, but would love to hear from the group.
I agree. I think the idea of the municipal service district is a little early now. We will have to, it'll come in time, but, you know, I saw 63 or so, 66% of the folks downtown who'd be paying it are not in favor right now, so I think it's something we need to deal with in the future.
Yeah.
So
Just a point of clarity, on the Common Yards tenant survey, it was the 66%. On the downtown survey, it was a little different. I think it was 43% likely versus 38% unlikely. And then the delta between that and 100% was those who were neutral on it. But that's still a point you made, Councilman Andrew, appreciate that.
But as a, and correct me if I'm wrong, the general consensus is that they are satisfied with the current level of service now.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and then so kind of, I don't know, I tend to try to read the room when we look at situations like the economy currently, what it can look like, because this is still a young downtown when you consider like the overall picture, how long we've actually been at this. I would tend to agree that we wait to give it some more time.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. Any other thoughts?
I think we wait till, I was the unknown with the property tax revaluation.
Very. Yeah.
I heard from Councilmember Andy Williams and Harmon. Is it general consensus? Is there anyone who feels differently that we need to go ahead and push on this?
I know that it would be, great for downtown to have more money to use for some things that they need to do, but I do think the timing is just not right.
Yeah. Councilman Williams, you bring up a great point about satisfaction with services, which at the point at which we're getting so many calls and we're not able to keep up with it, then that becomes part of that trigger that we talked about before. And I know in a meeting we had last month with some stakeholders on this topic, we just mentioned, it's a city of 68 square miles, I think is what we are, or something like that. I was getting mixed up. Are we 68 square miles? Or 58 square miles?
Right now, that was 58.
58, okay. Give or take 10 square miles. Yeah, we can fix that tonight if you want. A city of 58 square miles and so many employees who are trying to provide services across that 58 square miles. Whenever we start to get a concentrated just call for services, whether it's more sanitation, more safety and security, so on and so forth, we just have to look at that. But it feels like we're not there. It does seem though, in terms of next steps, Madam Manager, do you think we can work on maybe trying to collectively identify what those triggers might look like? Because this council, and I lived this with the stakeholder group last month, said this council was having a discussion that, since I've been on council, we hadn't had the MSD discussion really. We go back 6 years, some of us, others much longer. Not much longer. But we haven't had a lot of MSD discussion. And so it was good, it felt like, to have this discussion because now everyone feels more aware. I do wonder though, for future councils, let's say, this year we don't feel ready, next year doesn't feel ready, you get a new council in, they're gonna be asking similar questions, but if we had for future groups to know what those triggers are, that feels like it could be helpful.
I think you can always have conversations around what the triggers may look like, but I also realize that what those triggers are now are gonna be different in the future. Even if you look at some of the readiness triggers that were presented by some of the feedback sessions that were held, they talk about current metrics around the services that are being provided. One of the things that council talked about was wanting to have different incentive programs that may be able to help with larger facade grants for some of the smaller businesses that can be funded by an MSD. That's a trigger that may change as downtown continues to grow. There was some discussion around the fairness in terms of who pays. Again, thinking about the boundaries of the MSD. Depending on who you talk to, they feel like, the boundaries need to be primarily in the core of downtown, around our catalyst area. But that also leaves out a significant portion of our downtown that we've been focused on, which is Uptown, who has been very instrumental in helping us to plan and think about the future of High Point. There's been conversations around, when is the right time? Do you wait until your downtown is mature with businesses before you start implementing some of these programs where MSDs typically are trying to help stabilize and support and keep your downtown growing? There's questions around kind of governance and representation, which was also a trigger that was listed. The council has taken a look at the existing downtown High Point organization. It represents small businesses, large businesses, nonprofit entities, both from the public and private sector that are represented on that board. But again, when you talk about the governance and the structure, depending on the entity that is selected to actually carry out those services, that could change. So I think there are several things that are listed here in terms of triggers, but I think you have to be very realistic that the triggers that are listed here now are likely triggers that would change as our downtown matures, as it grows and it's developed. So I think that the time to look at triggers is more closely tied to when the council feels like it's ready to implement this. Because I think if you do it now, some of the information that we would gather would probably not be as relevant when you're ready to actually institute the MSD. It's just a very dynamic environment. I think what is key for us to consider is that whenever you're establishing an MSD, the services that you're providing have to be above and beyond those baseline services. So every year that we continue to build in new services or new activities as part of the city's operating budget, when we establish an MSD, we have to be prepared to go above and beyond that. So I think with last year, we slightly increased the amount that we were funding in some of the downtown activities. So whatever MSD or services that we want to provide in the future has to be on top of those services. So every time we may add something new or a new event, or we put something into our operating budget, we have to be prepared to go above that when we're looking at how revenue from a municipal service district would function. So I do think if you're asking me, do we start working on triggers now? My recommendation would be that we hold off on having conversations about triggers until we're closer to a timeline where we feel like it might be possible, because the parameters that we're going to be evaluating at that time are probably going to look a little bit different than what we would evaluate right now, if we're not looking at doing this for the next kind of 2 to 3 years.
We said that we kind of looked at, we're the only city around the top 12, was it, that doesn't have one. Any of those other 12 initiate or start their MSD post-COVID, or have they been in place a long time?
They've been in place a long time. They've been in place a long time.
Well, lots changed over the last handful of years. So I would like to say thank you to the Chamber and Downtown High Point for all they're trying to do, and all they're doing, not just trying to do. But this exceptional city's got a different history than the other 12 in a lot of ways, and a couple of really big ways. So as we approach it, I don't know, I've been out a little bit in some downtowns around us lately, and there's a different mindset out there, especially in younger people, than there was 5 or 10 years ago. And the bottom line is whatever we do, or the cities that grow and thrive are going to be dependent on that dollar flow, cash inflow, whether it's feet on the ground or coming in electronically or whatever. So I think it's, I would say it's unfortunately, a little bit premature, but, at this time.
But also, I'd like to add that, I mean, it might be something we could look at again next year. We don't necessarily have to wait 2 to 3 years. I think, once we've got the new Smitty and Pearls open, Revival's getting ready to open this spring, people will start really seeing that the urban greenway really is coming down. I think that that's gonna spark a whole lot of things, and it might make it easier to come back to that conversation. My thoughts.
All right, any other questions, feedback? Thank you, Downtown High Point and Business High Point, we appreciate you both taking your feedback. We'll transition now to item 2026-40, closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Mayor?
Second.
May I have a moment before we go into closed session?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to take an opportunity, we have a new staff member that's with us.
Okay.
To introduce new staff member before we go into closed session.
Yes.
We have Ms. Allison Kraft, who is our new Water Resources Director. So I'd ask Allison if she would just stand for a moment. Allison started with us February 2nd, and this was a new department that was created as part of this past budget, realizing some of the pressures that we're seeing with our infrastructure and our utilities. But Allison is a professional engineer, over 19, 20 years of experience in the world of water resources, so we're really excited to have her on board with us. So I just wanted to make sure you all had an opportunity to meet Allison, and I wanted to welcome her and give an opportunity just to introduce her to our council and our leadership today.
Is today your first day?
No, I've been here for, I actually started during the snow.
Perfect time. Welcome. Hope you enjoyed it.
They say City Hall does close, right? Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely. No, thank you and welcome, honestly.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. That motion to go into close was made by Councilman Holmes and seconded by Councilman Johnson. Any discussion on that motion to go into closed session? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it, and that motion passes. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. We're out of closed session. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second. Motion to recognize Councilman Holmes, second to Councilman Moore. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn our special meeting? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it, and we are adjourned. Thank y'all. Spoke to the young lady who was next week like that. There were two of them. One they wanted, that's right, one they wanted, fourth right. They